Ascites is defined as pathological accumulation of free fluid in peritoneal cavity. In normal human body, there is little or no fluid in peritoneal cavity. By the little, we mean that in female, about 20 ml of free fluid are present in peritoneal cavity, and this amount varies slightly during the menstruational cycle. But this amount of free fluid are not detected clinically. To detect the ascites clinically, it is necessary that a patient should have at least 1 liter of free fluid in peritoneal cavity in thin patient, while the 2 liter of free fluid are necessary in obese patient. So with this amount of free fluid, we can detect the ascites clinically. How to approach the ascites clinically? Clinically, the patient of ascites will present with abdominal distension. So whenever a patient presents with abdominal distension, always look for the 5 causes of abdominal distension. Remember by a mnemonic 5 F's: fluid, fat, fetus, flatus and fat. So how we will consider that the distension is due to fluid. For the fluid, there are 3 characteristic signs on clinical examination. The first one is a flank fullness, the second one is fluid thrills, and the third one is a shifting dullness. When these 3 clinical signs are present, it is a clear-cut hint that the patient is having fluid in peritoneal cavity, which is causing abdominal distension. Once we are sure that the patient have abdominal distension due to ascites, mean that there are fluid in peritoneal cavity. The next step is to look for the cause of ascites. The ascites is caused by many diseases, but the important ones are listed below. The first one is cirrhosis of liver with portal hypertension. It is the most common cause of ascites, and about 80% of ascites is due to cirrhosis of liver with portal hypertension. To understand it, that how cirrhosis of liver produce ascites, let's look at this diagram. Whenever there is a cirrhosis of liver, in cirrhosis of liver there will be a formation of nodule and the liver parenchyma get fibrosed. Due to the formation of nodule and fibrosis, there will be obstruction to the flow of portal vein. Due to the obstruction to the flow of portal vein, there will be an increase of pressure in portal vein. Due to the increase of pressure in portal vein, there will be a formation of collateral vessels. The collateral vessels are the potent vessels which are usually non-functional. But whenever there is an increased pressure in portal system, it get active and it will shunt the blood from portal system to the systemic system. So due to the formation of collaterals, there will be a production of mediators such as nitric oxide. The nitric oxide will produce due to the formation of collaterals will act on a splanchnic vessels. The splanchnic vessels are the vessel which supplies the gut. Due to the dilation of splanchnic vessel, the systemic arterial pressure drop. Due to the drop of the systemic arterial pressure, the RAS system will sense this drop pressure and will activate the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system with secondary aldosteronism, increase sympathetic activity, increase level of atrial natriuretic peptide and alter activity of kallikrein kinase system. Due to the activation of all of this system, it will produce salt and water retention. Due to the salt and water retention, there will be a formation of ascites. So this is the main pathophysiology behind the formation of ascites during cirrhosis. Apart from this, other factors also contribute to the formation of ascites, such as that the portal hypertension will alter the permeability of the portal vein. So there will be an accumulation of fluid in peritoneal cavity due to the altered level of permeability. Other than this, due to the increased hydrostatic pressure, there will be a formation of ascites along with low albumin which produce in cirrhosis of which occur as a result of cirrhosis of liver can also contribute to the formation of ascites in cirrhosis of liver with portal hypertension. Apart from cirrhosis of liver with portal hypertension, other diseases such as intra-abdominal malignancy, predominantly ovarian or GI carcinoma, infections such as TB and pyogenic peritonitis, congestive cardiac failure, and other diseases such as hepatoma, hypoproteinemia due to any cause can cause ascites. It was all about the causes of ascites. Now come toward the investigation of ascites, that how we will investigate ascites and how we will perform the diagnostic workup for ascites. The initial investigation of choice for detecting ascites is ultrasonography. The ultrasonography is the best mean to detect ascites, particularly in those patients who are obese or have a small volume of fluid. Apart from ultrasonography, we can perform ascitic tap, called as a diagnostic ascitic tap. In this procedure, we collect the sample of ascitic fluid and we perform or we study the characteristic of ascitic fluid. How we will study the characteristic of ascitic fluid? The first step in studying the characteristic of ascitic fluid is to perform naked eye examination. That how the ascitic fluid actually look. Mean that we look for the color and the different color will lead toward the different cause of ascites. Such as in cirrhotic patient there will be clear straw color or the light green color ascitic fluid. While in malignant disease there will be a bloody ascites. In infection there will be a cloudy ascites, while in biliary communication there will be a heavy bile staining ascites, mean yellowish ascites, while in lymphatic obstruction there will be milky white or chylous ascites. So the type of color can give a hint toward the cause of ascites. Apart from this naked eye examination, we can perform certain lab tests. The first one is SAG. We calculate the SAG. SAG means the serum acetic albumin gradient. We calculate this value and on the basis of SAG we narrow down the cause of ascites. If the SAG value is greater than 1.1 gram per dl, it means that the cause of ascites is due to the portal hypertension. So what causes portal hypertension which ultimately lead to ascites? It includes three diseases: cirrhosis of liver, congestive heart failure and the portal vein outflow obstruction. To differentiate between these two diseases, we perform another test on ascitic fluid. We measure the protein level in ascitic fluid. If the protein level are greater than 25 gram per liter, it means that the ascites is due to the congestive heart failure or the portal vein outflow obstruction. While if the protein level are less than 25 gram per liter, it means that the cause of ascites is due to cirrhosis of liver. Apart from that, if the SAG value is less than 1.1, if the SAG value is less than 1.1, it means that the cause of ascites can be due to four diseases. The first one is infection such as tuberculosis, the second one is malignancy, the third one is pancreatic ascites, and the fourth one is the hypothyroidism. The hypothyroidism rarely can cause ascites. How to differentiate between these four diseases? To differentiate between these four diseases or to narrow the diagnosis, we perform different tests, such as when the glucose level in ascitic fluid are low, it suggests of infection such as tubercular ascites. While in malignancy we perform cytological examination which can rule out the malignancy. While in the pancreatic ascites, the acetic amylase activity will be greater than 1000 unit per liter. While in hypothyroidism, we measure the TSH level. It was all about the diagnostic workup for ascites, that how we will approach the ascites clinically and how we will perform different laboratory examination to narrow down the causes of ascites. At last, I will discuss two terms. The first one is the transudative ascites, while the second one is the exudative ascites. By the transudative ascites, we mean that the protein level in ascitic fluid less than 25 gram per liter. When the protein are low in quantity, it is called as a transudative ascites. The transudative ascites most commonly occur in cirrhosis of liver. The second one is the exudative ascites. The exudative ascites mean when the protein concentration is greater than 25 gram per liter, and it is called as exudative ascites, and it usually occur in TB or malignancy. So the only difference between the exudative and the transudative ascites is the concentration or the amount of protein in ascitic fluid. Other than this, there is a special term called as a chylous ascites. The chylous ascites mean that the triglyceride level in acidic fluid are greater than 1.1 gram per liter. When the triglyceride level are greater than 1.1 gram per liter, it is called as a chylous ascites, and it suggests anatomical or the functional abnormality of the lymphatic drainage. And these chylous ascites have a characteristic milky white appearance. It was all about the investigation of ascites. Now come toward the management of ascites, that how we will manage the patient with ascites. The successful treatment of ascites relieve the discomfort but does not prolong life. And if the ascites are treated over vigorously, it can produce serious disorder of the fluid and electrolyte balance, which can lead to the hepatic encephalopathy. So therefore, the ascites should be treated very gently. How we treat the ascites, the management of ascites come in twofold. The first one is the treatment of the transudative ascites, and the second one is the treatment of exudative ascites. In transudative ascites, we treat the patient by restricting sodium and water intake and promote the urine output with diuretics. The sodium is restricted, such as no added salt is used by a patient, and the salt intake will be restricted to about 100 millimole per 24 hour. Along with that, usually the water restriction is not required. But if there is a life threatening hyponatremia, such as the hyponatremia less than 125 millimole per liter, then we can restrict the water intake to about 1 to 1.5 liter. Other than this, you can use diuretic to clear the acidic fluid. The diuretic most commonly used are the spironolactone. Along with spironolactone, we can use furosemide. Usually the spironolactone and the furosemide are used in combination. The maximum dose of spironolactone is 400 milligram, while the Lasix is 160 milligram. If the patient is not responding to this dose of diuretic, it is called as a refractory ascites or the diuretic resistant ascites, and the patient with refractory ascites are treated with two procedures. The first one is the paracentesis. The paracentesis is the first line treatment of refractory ascites, in which the large volume of the acidic fluid is drained. Usually the paracentesis to dryness is safe, mean that we should remove maximum amount of acidic fluid, and if the blood pressure allows, and if there is a decrease of blood pressure, we can use albumin or the Hemosil to replace the lost volume. Apart from that, we can also perform TIPS procedure, the transjugular intrahepatic portosystemic stent surgery. And the TIPS is used in those patients who have a refractory ascites with good liver function. It was all about the treatment of transudative ascites. Now come toward the treatment of exudative ascites. Mean the exudative ascites due to malignancy, it is treated with paracentesis, and usually no fluid replacement is required. So it is all about the management of ascites. If there is still any question, you guys can ask, and stay tuned for more update.